The cabin door was seconds from closing when Marcus Bell stumbled down the jet bridge, breathless, his daughter's worn stuffed rabbit clutched under one arm and a boarding pass crumpled in his fist. He was the last passenger on Flight 204, and he had almost missed it entirely. What he didn't know was that in less than 90 minutes, a stranger in a captain's uniform would salute him in front of 100 passengers and change his life forever. If stories like this move you, if you believe in kindness and second chances, hit that like button, drop a comment below, share this with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Kindness Corner so you never miss a story that reminds you why humanity still matters. Marcus had not slept properly in 3 years. Ever since his wife Elena passed away after a short, brutal battle with illness, he had been both mother and father to 7-year-old Lily, working double shifts as a mechanic by day and taking on freelance repair jobs by night just to keep their small apartment and keep food on the table. Today he was flying to see his estranged father, a man he hadn't spoken to in over a decade, because his father was dying and had asked, through a nurse, for one last conversation. Marcus almost didn't go. Part of him still carried the anger of a childhood where his father was more absent than present, more silence than support. But Lily had looked up at him with Elena's same soft brown eyes and asked him a question that broke something open in his chest. If Grandpa is scared, shouldn't somebody hold his hand? That was the moment Marcus booked the ticket. He found his seat, 14C, squeezed between a businessman scrolling through spreadsheets and a college student with headphones already in. He tucked Lily's rabbit into his backpack, closed his eyes, and tried to steady his breathing. He hated flying. He hated leaving Lily with his sister for the weekend. He hated that his father's illness was forcing a reunion neither of them had the courage to start on their own terms. As the plane taxied down the runway, Marcus stared out the window at the blur of tarmac lights and whispered a promise to Elena, the way he did during every hard moment, "I'm trying. I'm doing my best. Please tell me I'm doing this right." Somewhere in the front of that same aircraft sat a man named Captain Daniel Reyes, a 22-year veteran pilot with silver hair beneath his cap and a quiet, steady presence that passengers often described as reassuring. What none of the passengers boarding that day realized was that Captain Reyes had grown up not far from where Marcus now lived, in a rundown apartment complex where a single mother raised him alone after his own father walked out. Daniel remembered what it felt like to watch his mother work herself to exhaustion, to see the quiet desperation behind her smile, to wonder if kindness from strangers was the only thing standing between his family and falling apart completely. It was, in fact, a stranger, a retired airline mechanic who lived 2 doors down, who had once paid for Daniel's school uniform without ever asking for anything in return, who told a scared 12-year-old boy that someday he could be anything he wanted, including a pilot. Daniel never forgot that. He built his entire career, in some quiet way, as a tribute to a debt he could never fully repay, so he made it a habit, wherever possible, to repay it forward to strangers instead. During the flight, as the crew moved through the cabin, one of the flight attendants noticed Marcus quietly comforting himself, gripping the armrest during turbulence, his knuckles pale, his jaw tight with something heavier than fear of flying. She struck up a brief conversation, the way attentive crew members do, and Marcus, worn down by exhaustion and grief he rarely spoke aloud, found himself opening up in fragments. He mentioned his late wife. He mentioned Lily. He mentioned that he was flying to see a father who had abandoned him, because even now, even after everything, he believed that showing up mattered more than being right. The flight attendant said nothing more at the time, but she carried those fragments forward, up to the cockpit, during a routine check-in with the captain. Captain Reyes listened without interrupting. He asked her to repeat the passenger's name. Marcus Bell. And something in him went still, because 30 years ago, in that same rundown apartment complex, there had been a young couple 2 floors below him named the Bells, and the man's son, a boy just a bit younger than Daniel, used to sit on the stairwell some evenings looking utterly alone, waiting for a father who came home late and left early, if he came home at all. Daniel could not be certain it was the same family. Life is full of coincidences that turn out to mean nothing. But something about the story, the mechanic father, the quiet resilience, the daughter he clearly adored, felt too familiar to ignore. As the aircraft began its final descent into the city, Captain Reyes made an unusual decision. Instead of remaining in the cockpit through disembarkation as pilots typically do, he asked to personally greet the passengers as they exited, something he rarely did except on meaningful flights. When Marcus, gathering his backpack and Lily's rabbit, stepped toward the exit as the very last passenger on board, he found the captain standing at the cabin door, not with a routine goodbye, but standing tall, raising his hand in a slow, deliberate salute. Marcus froze, unsure what he'd done to deserve such a gesture from a total stranger. Captain Reyes lowered his hand and spoke gently, his voice thick with an emotion he hadn't expected to feel that day. He told Marcus that decades ago, a stranger had shown him kindness when his own world felt like it was falling apart, a debt he had spent his whole life trying to repay. He told Marcus that hearing his story today, the sacrifice, the love, the willingness to face a painful past for the sake of forgiveness and his daughter, had reminded him exactly why he still believed in people. Then Captain Reyes reached into his jacket and handed Marcus a small card with a handwritten number and a simple message: "Whatever you need, whenever you need it, you are not alone anymore." Marcus stood in the jet bridge, tears he had held back for 3 long years finally breaking free, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming, disorienting relief of being seen. He thought of Lily's question about holding someone's hand when they're scared, and realized that today, a stranger had reached out and held his. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who might need a reminder that kindness still exists in this world. Before you go, I want to ask something special. In the comments below, tell me about a stranger who showed you unexpected kindness, a moment that changed how you saw the world. Your story might be the very thing someone else needs to read today. Marcus went on to see his father that evening, and though their conversation was far from perfect, it was honest, and it was enough. Sometimes the last passenger on the plane is not the one running late. Sometimes they are the one the universe was patiently waiting to seat, right where they needed to be, right when someone needed to remind them that they were never truly alone.